is sé ar bríomh caint seoranacht Uachtarán Sinn Féin. Cosúil lena alán de na teachtaí sa Chéad Dáil, bhí Uachtarán faoi glas ag na Sasannaí. Scuile é. Dúra gur sceflathóir a bhí ann. Ach tá sé linganacht, agus tá meas in éireann, agus fud an domhan. Gerry Adams just made it back by the skin of his teeth. He was stateside for the historic inauguration of a new American president and a new era of change. He is our keynote speaker this evening. Because I don't quite frankly know what to say about him, I will simply ask that you give the warmest of welcomes to Gerry Adams.
Ag grith máil mar bhí sceacht amór agus bhí mé ceanú ar do gomol éascail bhí rinn mé áród eile tíobh an mhuid an áras seo leis an sceachta ar an tíobh an mhuid. So, dheannaigh mé dhíthil leis an óróid seo istí an áras starúil agus ar dús bhfuil an fáilte don crí a cóir a bhahandanna don acáid anacht. Is acáid tafachtach speisialta é seo an bhfuil méid ag ceilliú nócha bliain ón Chéad Dáil. I want to thank everyone who helped to ensure that today's commemorative event reflects the reality and the spirit of the historic First Dáil. And I want to especially thank our party here in Dublin for the work which they put into this evening's work. I also want to extend a special welcome to the relatives of those who were elected to the First Dáil and who are here with us tonight. In the confusion, some people were left outside, including, by the way, the Joint First Minister Martin McGuinness. So we don't know exactly who got in, but I just want, if we would, just to extend a special bula bus to those people. The Easter Rising and the 1918 election struck decisive blows against the British Empire. And when the First Dáil met, nations across the world were recovering from the devastation of the First Great War. And many of these nations were demanding their freedom. At the same time, the British and other colonial powers were carving up the Middle East and laying the foundations for conflicts that rage today in Palestine and in Iraq. British imperialism has a lot to answer for. But here in contrast, in this hall, the Irish people, through their democratically elected representatives, stood defiantly against that empire and declared independence. It must have been an emotional and joyous moment. Bhí súil na hurran ar an áit seo an sin, bhí dóchas chuid muintir imper na Sasanna orthu fásta. Outside, the streets were thronged with thousands of enthusiastic people. Inside, this hall was packed overflowing with visitors and journalists. The atmosphere must have been electric. I'm sure that more than a few tears were shed as the roll call of TDs and the words "We glass a Gallav" rang out. Nach jas and rud da Nyanahish Alehad. To be sitting here, to be participating, to be listening to those first speeches of a free Irish nation, given entirely in Irish, and knowing that the Republic declared in 1916 in arms, had been ratified by the people. It was a defining point in Irish history. Not everyone who could have been here was here. The Unionists and the Irish Parliamentary Party MPs refused to attend. And of course, there were some 36 Shinners, elected representatives, being held in British prisons. But those who were here were fulfilling the Sinn Féin Manifesto pledge of 1918 that our party would establish a national parliament able to speak and act in the name of the Irish people and to develop Ireland's social, political and industrial life for the welfare of the whole people of Ireland. The election, as we've heard, had been hard fought. Ní rona sasnig an Ireland rohasta, Rio, the Dainlahas don Tír Shaw. There was massive intimidation. Over 100 candidates and activists were jailed. Election material was confiscated and Republican newspapers were banned. However, the courage of those who took up arms in 1916, the public anger at the execution of the leaders, and the Sinn Féin Manifesto for Change resonated with the voters, many of whom, particularly as we've just heard again, were women for the first time. The only woman elected on these islands was Constance Markovich for Sinn Féin. She became Minister for Labour in the First Dáil, one of the first women government ministers in the world. The 1918 election was also the only occasion, the last occasion, on which the people of this island voted together in a single election. The landslide victory for our party was an overwhelming endorsement of the desire for an independent and united Ireland. Níor cóir Yanu a Yanu ar Shaw, Creidim go bhfuil an fun sin, fun na Saoirse, ag muintir na Tír Shaw go fáil. The inaugural meeting of the First Dáil Ireland here in the Mansion House was an unequivocal act of national self-determination. And I believe that the spirit that drove that event is present today within the Irish people. It was also the day when the first shots were fired at Sullihead Bag in County Tipperary, and what became the Town War. In the course of that first meeting, Dáil Éireann issued a Declaration of Independence and a message to the free nations of the world. In its message to the world, it called on every free nation to support the Irish Republic by recognising Ireland's national status. Sprague na focail seo, pobl na Huron, agus Dini Ella, ar fud an dón Comai. Words that reverberate, that echo today throughout the world for all of those people who are still struggling for freedom and justice. And our message, as it was then, is unambiguous. Then, the freedom and justice as the fundamental principles of international law, and the commitment to frank cooperation between the peoples for equal rights against the vested interests of ancient tyrannies, the control of government in every land upon the basis of the free will of a free people. That means in the Middle East. The Israeli assault on Gaza and the slaughter of over 1,000 Palestinians, many of them children, was an outrage. And it's now time for that conflict between the Palestinians and Israel to be brought to a permanent end. That means direct dialogue. It means a real and unrelenting international effort to construct a durable peace settlement which provides for two states, including a Palestinian state that is sustainable and viable. The First Dáil also set out a visionary democratic programme of social and economic goals based on equality. And I'm delighted that we here tonight in Queeving did the honours on this 100th anniversary of the ITGWU to extend solidarity to SIPTU through its leader, Jack O'Connor. The democratic programme set out as its standard that the first duty of the Republic is to make provision for the physical, mental and spiritual well-being of the children, to ensure that no child shall suffer hunger or cold from lack of food, clothing or shelter, but that all shall be provided with the means and facilities requisite for their proper education and training as citizens of a free and Gaelic Ireland. That, Mr. Lenihan, is your patriotic duty. Can a focal Shaw a lig, agus in Med Shaw Alanis Tabak Takanu. The democratic programme stated that the sovereignty of the nation extends not only to all the men and women of the nation, but to all its material possessions, the nation's soil and all its resources, all the wealth and wealth-producing processes within the nation, and we reaffirm that all rights to private property must be subordinated to the public right and welfare. That also is our patriotic duty. The democratic programme declared that the rights of every citizen to an adequate share of the produce of the nation's labour. It promised a new scheme of social welfare that would ensure that the aged and infirm would no longer be regarded as a burden, but rather entitled to the nation's gratitude and consideration. And Minister Harney, the Republic also had the duty to safeguard the health of the people. Democratic programme pledged to build Ireland's economy and to reinvigorate industries which would be developed on the most beneficial, progressive, cooperative industrial lines. These principles speak directly to the challenges facing Ireland today. Not just this part of Ireland, but the entire island, because Ireland today is a place where British jurisdiction continues. It's a place where partition has distorted and stunted the economic and political potential of the people of this island. It's a place where unemployment, poverty and homelessness are on the rise. A place where too many citizens are on low wages, are out of work, where there's inadequate protection for workers, where there's poor public services and infrastructure, and much, much more. And it's a place where national resources, natural resources, are exploited not for the public benefit, but for the enrichment of private multinational corporations, often to the detriment of local communities and the environment. This is not the Ireland envisaged by the 1916 leaders or by those who met in this building 90 years ago today. Yesterday, the Oireachtas met in this room. Now that was a good and a necessary event. The Oireachtas should have been here today on the actual date of the inaugural meeting of the First Dáil. The problem is, no one in the government remembered until the last minute. And when they went looking for the use of this space, Quaylen E. Donovan and Don Doyle had already booked the Mansion House for Sinn Féin. I'm sure that news was well received in government buildings. But it's only a cynic you take pleasure from it. Anyway, we're not May Féiners, and when we were asked if we would let the Oireachtas in, we said, yes, of course. If you make it a truly national assembly with co-equal speaking rights. Well, that might be setting the bar too high, I was told. And it was. A few days later we were told thanks, but we'll go on our own on the 20th. So there you are, I suppose you could say yesterday was a provisional event. Today and this evening is the real deal. And I regret that the Taoiseach Brian Cowan, representing the South, and the Joint First Minister Martin McGuinness, representing the North, were not here tonight and today to co-celebrate this anniversary of Chéad Dáil. But the Minister of Education, Michelle Gildernew, the Minister for Regional Development, Conor Murphy, the Minister for Education, Katrina Ruan, Junior Minister Gerry Kelly, along with all of our MLAs, are here with our first Joint Minister, Martin McGuinness. And they're here side by side with our Leader in Leinster House, Caoimhín O'Quillan, with our TDs, Martin Ferris, Arthur Morgan, Angus O'Snodig and Shanador Pierce Doherty, with our MEPs, Mary Lou MacDonald, Barbara de Bruyne, and with Sinn Féin councillors right across the 32 counties. So even though Brian isn't here with Martin, Martin's not on his own. And if he's really stuck, he's almost got me to fall back on. But it's hardly surprising that the political elites behave as they do. The first Dáil was suppressed, Ireland was partitioned, and no one should be surprised at the way the 26 county state has developed. Liam Mellows put it well in these prophetic words: a political revolution in Ireland without a constant economic revolution merely means a change of masters. Instead of British capitalism waxing rich on the political and economic enslavement of Ireland, we would have Irish capitalists waxing rich on the political freedom but contrived enslavement of Ireland. And so it has come to be. New political managers and business interests which they represented came into the ascendancy. The declarations of social intent in the 1916 proclamation and the revolutionary programme of the First Dáil were abandoned, and as occurred yesterday, occasionally resurrected by successive governments and their fellow travellers only for lip service. During the boom years, Sinn Féin warned time and time again that this government was mismanaging the economy. Let me make this clear. The mess is not the fault solely of Brian Cowan. It's the fault of successive governments and Taoiseach. There was no proper utilisation or proper investment in infrastructure, education or health. Because tá sé scanaileach nach raibh plánáil a dhéanamh ag an rialtas or seo. The government was absolutely irresponsible. It protected its wealthy friends and does so yet. Anglo-Irish Bank, by a strange irony, at its general meeting, met in this very chamber this time last week. Protected, funded with your money. When we asked, as we did and as our friends in the Labour movement did, in the boom time, for the wealth to be spread about, we were told no. But when the bankers get it rough, no problem, the wealth is spread about. Developers, property speculators and private health insurers, all protected by the government. And who has it targeted? The most vulnerable, the sick, the elderly, the children. Let's also make it clear as we watch Tweedledum and Tweedledee on television, Fine Gael would do no better. This is the time for new ideas, for new thinking and for real change. It's a time for new political leadership and a new vision for the future. Now's the time for a national conversation about the core values of our society, about how we as an island people would like to live our lives. Now's the time for the people of Ireland to work together, to draw upon our strengths, to share and create a common purpose based upon our rights as citizens and our pride and confidence in our country and in Ireland. Now is the time once again for another great national revival of our language, of our arts, of our culture. Now is the time to build national morale. Members of Chéad Dáil knew the importance of using and reviving the Irish language. Indeed, as I've said earlier, the proceedings of the inaugural First Dáil were all in Irish. And today, much work needs to be done to ensure that the Irish language survives and flourishes. The economic challenges facing the people of Ireland are huge. We don't underestimate that. But they can be overcome by honest leadership and by decisive action. Ní céalar bí leis an teorann grana sa dóin san Europe in a will which anew. One little point. An all-island economy makes sense. A partitioned island makes no sense. Today, as in 1919, I believe the vast majority of Irish people support the objective of an independent and united Ireland. This party is the United Ireland Party. We are for the construction of a new national democracy, a new republic on the island of Ireland, and reconciliation between Orange and Green. Ta obair the Yee, níl sé a Harlu gan Sar Ireacht. Now is the time to unapologetically promote a united Ireland as desirable, viable and achievable in this generation through peaceful and democratic methods. Republicans believe that the Union is a nonsense, even in these more enlightened times, for Unionists as well as for the rest of us. Working people, the farming and fishing sectors, the working poor, deprived communities afflicted by real hardship and disadvantage know that being Unionist matters little. The Union does not put food on their tables or heat in their homes. Under the Union, Unionists make up fewer than 2% of the kingdom. And I don't mean Kerry. In a new republic, they would constitute 20%. They would be citizens, not subjects. They would have rights, not concessions. They would belong. They would be welcome. And we have to persuade them of that. So too does the Irish government. And the British government also has its obligations, but their obligations are of a different order. We in this room, and those outside this room who aspire to that objective, we are the nation builders. We have to engage, to reach out to Unionists, to talk to them on the type of Ireland we want to create. Our responsibility is to ensure that Unionists are comfortable and secure in a new Ireland. It's their Ireland also. So it must be a shared Ireland, an integrated Ireland, an Ireland based upon rights in which Unionists have equal ownership. There's also a need to attract and to work with allies internationally to build on existing support. There are tens of millions of people across the globe who can proudly trace their lineage back to this country. The Irish diaspora is strongest in the United States. I returned from there today. I left Ireland on Sunday, myself and Richard McCauley. So tan spéisian sin acu go fáil. And yesterday it was my great honour to represent all of you at the inauguration of President Barack Obama. And for me, my abiding memory of that event won't be the hoopla, won't even be the speeches, but just the presence of so many people of obvious different ethnic backgrounds who were united, wanting change, wanting peace, wanting justice, wanting equality. There is considerable goodwill in the USA for a united Ireland. And we have to mobilise and organise with our friends there to advance our goals. I want to welcome the President of the Friends of Sinn Féin, Larry Downs, to our proceedings today. I'm also pleased to announce that this summer Sinn Féin will be hosting 2 major conferences in the USA. We'll be inviting Irish America to discuss with us how we can advance a United Ireland campaign. That campaign will also include Britain. And the initial focus of the United Ireland campaign in England, Scotland and Wales will be to build towards a major conference in London early next year. In the meantime, we're engaging with Irish communities, MPs, other politicians, trade unionists and others right across our nearest offshore island. Most recently in places like Leeds, Newcastle, Liverpool and Birmingham, as well as in London itself. The planned London conference will not be the conclusion of this work, it will mark a stage in what must be a longer term campaign. So there are lots of challenges ahead, comrades, but there's also great hope, not least because many people want a better Ireland. They want an Ireland in which orange and green can build a common future in cooperation and harmony. We Republicans, we have a vision of an Ireland at peace with itself and its neighbours. And there will be hard times. These are indeed hard times for our country, north and south, though people in other regions have harder times. But in hard times, we are especially called upon to come forward. The leaders of the rising in 1916, or the First Dáil, they were called upon to come forward. They did not retreat, they came forward. They had a sense of purpose, and that's what Ireland needs today. Ireland needs citizens to step forward and to collectively shape that sense of common purpose. To make a commitment to do whatever all of us can to improve the lives of our people and our communities. We all of us have a responsibility for each other and a responsibility to each other. And the economic future of this island can be and must be built on solid, secure foundations. That means based upon fairness, equality and decency, not greed and corruption. So friends, brothers and sisters, ta dúshlán roin a lig, ta Sinn Féin a gobar ar son agus ar ulf Fahunya Uran Seer agus Saintaha. On this 19th anniversary of the first freely elected Parliament of all the Irish people, I want to invite all of you to join with us in building that new and better Ireland for all in the 21st century. Baby Lynn. Baby Lynn agus an foblacht abu, Guramila Magus.
That the inspiration and commitment of 1919 will encourage all of you to get involved in the campaign to make Irish unity a reality in our lifetime. Tá súlagam gur bhain sibh taitneamh as an Commemoration agus go mbeidh tú ag obairling amach ansa san éire aontaithe agus éire saor. Agus iarm inis Mary Mullen gon amhrán na bhíon a Conall.
Fin tíran fin John Anna pain sa barna gwyn le galar gwyn le con Israel fin